hear from the three speakers first. Our second speaker this afternoon is Steve Halliday, who, as well as being president of Socitm, is also head of ICT at Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council. And he's going to talk to us about adopting open source. So apparently he's saved over £1 million to date. So congratulations to him. Over to you, Steve.
Thanks very much, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, open source. I think there's probably, generally speaking, three positions that people take on open source. The first position is it is the silver bullet. It would solve everything. We should all use open source because it's cheap. Why wouldn't you? It's free. Let's use open source. It'll drive out all those costs. Second position is actually, hang on, there's a problem with all of that. It's not supported. I don't understand the service level arrangement. How will I be sure that I'm delivering critical systems through a product that isn't supported properly? And the third position is kind of in the middle of those two, and it basically says there are places and times in which open source is appropriate and places and times in which you will create fantastic savings out of that. You'll create a more agile environment. You'll be able to do more stuff. And actually, there are places and times in which that's less the case. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about how we managed to sort of drive a strategy with open source that takes that middle ground and how we managed, as was just said, to save £1 million over a few years on deployment of open source. My name's Steve Halliday. I'm president of the Society of IT Managers, and I'm also the head of ICT CIO for Solihull Council. And hopefully that one will work. So yeah, a little bit about Solihull. We're one of the smallest metropolitan boroughs. That means we're a metropolitan borough accountable for delivering all of the local government services, and we're kind of in the neighbour of some very large ones. Birmingham's the largest authority in Europe. We sit in their shadow there a little bit. Our turnover is about £150 million a year, and we managed to save this £1 million with delivering an open source solution in part of our environment. Socitm, you probably know a little bit about Socitm. I think our logo's up there. We're one of the supporting suppliers today. Socitm's a membership organisation for IT leaders in public sector. My role as president at the moment, I'm particularly engaged in conversations with friends at the Cabinet Office around making sure that we've got some pragmatic and risk-containing approaches to information security and information governance, and that's kind of the territory in which Socitm operates. Back to the open source position in Solihull. What we're doing there is we're running the Oracle e-business suite. We chose to install that sometime before I joined the organisation. So for finance, HR, payroll, training, CRM and procurement, Oracle is our ERP solution of choice. And we basically made a decision to go with open source on Linux in 1999. Took a little bit of while after that to implement it, and all of this took place before I joined. So I'm not here to claim this as my victory, but I am here to say here's what happened. And the decision factors were kind of like this. There was kind of view from my he's now retired now, but the IT manager at the time had a view that actually open source, that's from the open-toed sandal brigade, isn't it? Actually, we've got a bit of a problem with that. We think that's probably not where we want to be with those systems, which fundamentally, pay everybody, which pay our suppliers, which manage the relationship with our citizens, which pay vulnerable people benefits. So we need to be really, really clear that we can deliver a professional service with open source. And the contention, I suppose, is to say, well, actually, you can go and buy a solution that's much more secure, that's a professional team, a support team. And we're basically looking to find a strategy between that. And we managed to convince ourselves that actually we could find a way through that with deploying open source in that way. The way that we made the saving was to say, well, actually, it's not to do with the licensing so much, but it's to do with once you've deployed, and this case, so we've used an operating system, an open source operating system. That means we can go to market and buy any commodity server. We're not locked into any particular supplier. We therefore create a competitive market. Every time we come up to refresh, to replace file servers, to expand, deploying different resilience systems. We get really keen pricing, and we believe that's driven down costs by at least £100,000 per annum. So over the 10 years that we've been running this, we've saved the £1 million, which I told you about earlier. And the kind of model that we went for, we deployed the Red Hat Linux solution. Basically, there's kind of, you get your code from the Open-Toed Sandals Brigade, if that's what you want to call them, and international community of developers might be another way of describing that. And within that, there's a kind of some of that code gets taken out into a hardened core, and that core is a professional supported service level agreement. Pay for that like you would pay any other support contract, but you're basically getting the best of both worlds in that you're getting the quick moving community who creates solutions hardened into an environment that you can support. So we happen to have chosen Red Hat. There are plenty of other suppliers out there who offer a similar solution, and that just happened to be ours. So kind of taking that middle ground in the open source landscape, if you like. We're now looking at the next place to go for open source for Solihull. Intranet and Intranet are obvious candidates for us. In that journey, we went out to tender for a content management solution. We then had a look actually and thought we could do something probably better with open source. All of our services are in-house. So at the moment, we don't have an outsourced contract of any substance, which means that we're saving through making those decisions quite locally. We basically went back to the same model, having had that good experience over 10 years of delivering open source for the solution for finance and payroll, etc. We thought actually we wanted something similar for that. When we looked at the content management solutions in the marketplace from open source, .NET Nuke emerged as being a good contender. Good community. It's got versions, editions, community, professional, and enterprise. 800,000 global websites looked attractive to us, good offerings in social media. So we've gone for that. We've developed a intranet, which has gone live now. Our internet, our website, is going live back end of this year. But we're kind of in a place now where we've produced some stuff and we're ready to share with anybody who might be interested in picking up any of the code that we've developed to produce that. There's a quick view of an intranet site. It looks like an intranet site, doesn't it? Nothing too exciting there. But it's quite, it has the agility of having the blogs and the forums and that kind of stuff, which is part of the modern way of delivering a local authority and other businesses as well. So Mark's blog, Mark's our chief executive, likes to have a very high presence within that, and we can enable that to take place. So I know that we're a bit pressed for time today, so in summary, really, we're saying open source, they're places for us, and it depends on where you are in your architectural history, the landscape that you have, the relationships that you have with suppliers and customers. But we're saying, yes, it works for us for operating systems. Web content management, absolutely a very good contender. Maybe document management for us, and I know that there are good implementations with good products in open source for document management, business to intelligence as well, good offerings which play out in that same space of being open source and well supported. We've taken a view, and it's not shared by everybody, but it is by some, that at the desktop, using replacements alternative to the de facto standard, which we all know is Microsoft, has proven not to be cost effective for us. So we've looked at those offerings and said, actually, because it's a de facto standard, because every application that's a corporate app expects you to be able to interface with those standards, we found it quite difficult to migrate away from that. That might change in the course of the next few years, but right now it's quite a difficult place to be at, I think. And I think, my sort of personal experience from home, we installed my two children. I should count my children. My two children each have a laptop. We have another family laptop as well. We installed onto that open source alternative to Microsoft products, and I thought, well, that'll be fine, that'll be safe, that'll be contained. Probably about a week later, when my first daughter came home and said, I've got my homework and it has to be on PowerPoint. And a week after that, when my wife came home and said, actually, I've got to do this stuff for the Board of Governors, and it needs to be done on Excel, and I just don't want to faff around changing formats and blah, blah, blah. And it took very little time before attempt to try and run open source at the desktop at home was outvoted. And I know that that's happened in a few places in commercial organisations and public sector organisations across the country. That's a really hard, across the globe really, that's a really hard space to operate in. Might change, but certainly our experience is that's a fight that we're not yet ready to have. And we're thinking actually document management, business intelligence might be a wiser place to go for us within that. So that's a whirlwind tour with where we are at Solihull Council with open source. Thank you very much. We're going to hold questions to the end.